Climb aboard the NFL Express with Charles Barr and John Chapman, your one stop for all 32 NFL teams and news from around the league.
NFL Express, we the best ones out. Choo choo. What's up, man?
Not much, man. Every time you do the choo choo, I get pretty excited.
Yeah, me too. It's a Pavlovian effect I'm trying to have on you, just to trying to excite you with that noise.
Every time you do it, I drink more scotch. So
yeah.
There
we go. So we're going to continue on with just sharing some really embarrassing stories, but I'll give you the lineup. We're going to go embarrassing stories. We're going to talk about some NFL transactions, and then the last segment I'm extremely excited about, and that is this year's NFL draft class ranking the wide receivers, probably the most controversial kind of thing you could talk about on Twitter. It seems people definitely get their panties in a bunch over this one. So excited to go through that with yours truly and the JL_Chapman. What's up?
Hey, man. I'm excited because anytime I put something out about wide receivers, everybody gets really upset.
Yeah.
So, and if you don't know me, I love making people upset. I do a lot of mock drafts, and not because I enjoy mock drafts. I do enjoy mock drafts a little bit, but just because I love, hey, dumbass, our team has one pass rusher already. Or, I mean, you could fill that in for all 32 teams, and it's just, I can't go to sleep without being insulted. So once I get that, it's just like,
Yeah, there's a level of dumbness sometimes you see on Twitter where it's like, you can just see where that person's football IQ begins and ends, and you're like, and you just, you choose to address it or you don't. But let me go ahead and jump in with just my own stupidity, and I'm going to just title this one, One of the Worst Things I've Ever Done.
Oh, no.
Here we go. A series by host Chuck B. All right, so there was a girl that I was interested in college. By the way, all of our stories so far has basically featured around that kind of key element for me.
Well, here's what happens. A little peek behind the curtains.
Yeah.
Charles and I will be talking before we hit record, and we'll be like, all right, what do we want to talk about today? Let's do a college story. I'll be like, all right, well, and before I finish, he goes, never mind, got it.
Got it.
And then usually it's followed with, it's better if you don't know what story I'm telling.
Yes.
Let's just go with it. So here we go.
What's happening right now. So there's a girl that I was interested in, and there was a retreat that I wanted her to go on with me. And she was destined to go on a choir trip. A choir trip that required her to go to 3 different churches in Arkansas. So
a lot of red flags there.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a statute of limitations on this story. I felt even awkward like saying it because it's kind of jacked up, but here we go. So I was sitting at the lunch table with all these people, and I was going, man, it sucks because, you guys could totally come on this retreat. It would be so awesome. They're like, yeah, if only we could find a way to cancel the whole thing. And I was like, I'll do it. I'll get your whole event canceled. They're like, no way. So this is what I did. I went to like a dorm phone that was like a general phone that couldn't be traced back to me.
Not okay, this story.
Not okay, this story. And the first thing I did was I posed as the choir director to those 3 churches. And I called them all and I said, hey, it's Professor so-and-so. I got to let you know, we got a bunch of kids that are sick, and we won't be coming to do the choir this time. I'm going to have to cancel this weekend. Okay? First of all of you should be judging me so hard right now. That's the worst thing you could possibly
These kids are in college for this.
Yeah. So then what I do is I say that, again, hold your judgments till the very end, okay?
It's too late, man. Everybody's judging the shit out of you right now.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So then I pose and I call the director of the choir, and I pose as basically 3 different pastors. And what I say is that, hey, we've got some real bad weather coming in, and we got potentially some tornadoes this weekend, so we really don't want to mess with weather. And I'm telling our congregations not to come to church, so please cancel your trip. Okay? So I do this, And it doesn't work, by the way. It just doesn't work.
It worked for a little while, right?
For like a minute. They, as they were all loading up and getting their stuff on the bus, the director says, "I don't know who would do this," and like does this whole pose and basically just trashes me. Like this person's got to be the lowest scum of the earth to do something like this. And something like that, hearing a phrase like that, brings a ear-to-ear smile to me personally. And so when I got back and I heard the story and how upset the choir director was, I'll be very ashamed to tell you that I was pretty happy about it. And they ended up doing the trip, and I heard that the choir director had to explain to the pastor that it was someone who pranked. And yeah, so that's one of the worst things I've ever done. I tried to cancel a Christian choir tour and just, for my benefit.
Well, let's just be honest. Like, it wouldn't have affected anybody negatively. You were trying to do the world a favor.
I think I was, and I definitely see it that way now. So,
gosh,
pretty cool.
And the links that we go to, right?
Yeah.
The links that we go to. Now, I've got to ask for the listening audience out there, Charles Barr.
Sure.
Did you ever make a connection with said person of interest?
Like a romantic connection?
Sure, we'll go with romantic.
Romantic connection, yes, I did. And,
yes.
Yeah, I mean, you know this person for months.
Oh yeah,
months.
So technically the tornado did touch down.
Yes, it did. In all the metaphors.
The tornado's a great nickname, by the way, for you, because you just destroy everything.
That's right.
And you bring no positives to the situation you go to.
Yes, back then.
Now just sunshine, rainbows.
Sunshine, and yep. So anyways, there you go. If you were having a bad day and you were thinking that you were a bad person, you now know I'm a worse person than you, and I hope you feel better, listeners. Let's just start with last night's drama. Ian Rappaport probably kicking himself this morning going, dang it, I shouldn't have jumped the gun on that. But in all fairness, his reports are coming back to him saying the deal is close. My understanding of what went down via Twitter, which can be inaccurate, obviously, is that the Bills leaked that information to see how AB would respond. AB responded with fake news, and if you send me there, I'll retire. John, what's your take on the situation? Do you think that they really were close?
Yeah, I do. I think that they agreed on compensation as far as trades. I think that they were trying to work on, hey, let's figure out whatever, and the Bills were like, let us talk to AB and make sure that we can re-sign him. But as soon as the compensation as far as draft picks and all that was agreed upon, somebody let it out. And kind of the telling thing that happened here, Schefter kept his mouth shut. Schefter didn't say anything. And so, Ian Rappaport, I absolutely love that dude. I'll probably get blocked for what I'm about to say. He was wrong, and he was trying to make the jump on Schefter, whatever, but he is no Schefter. And the funny thing is about either one of those, if you criticize either one publicly, you are blocked. Just what happened. I've been messaged privately, DM'd by at least 10 different people asking me to screenshot their tweets because they have all been blocked. So that's what I think happened. The teams were happy with whatever, and I think this was kind of a middle finger from the Steelers to Brown, just showing everybody, hey, if you mess with us, this is what's going to happen. But guess what? Antonio Brown holds all the cards. So if he chooses he doesn't want to go and he wants to retire, there's no whatever. Now, an interesting caveat as far as his signing bonus and all that stuff, if he does retire, he owes $12.4 million back to the Steelers. So I don't think retirement is an option, and I'll let you kind of bring us to where we are today. But, yeah, so that's what I think happened. It kind of fell apart because AB was like, hell no. And the sad thing is, if he goes where we think he's going, the Bills are way better than that team. The Bills have a top 3 defense in the NFL by far.
Mm-hmm. So essentially, AB releases this video, and by the time we drop this podcast tonight, there's a high likelihood that it'll be announced. What we think is that, and everybody, so it's not like we have a lead, but in the video, he says, I'm going to, tell you who it's going to be in a little bit. But his buddy says he's already wearing the black and gray. So they're trying to drop that it was to Oakland and that he'd go to the Raiders.
Right.
Interesting. Let's just talk quickly about what's the dynasty value like for a guy like Derek Carr. Does he become revived, or are we still scared about some of these rumors that Gruden may trade him?
The dynasty value is good only because he's so young. Yeah. And if you look at what Carr has done, if you remember 2 years ago, he was like a top 5 quarterback, possible MVP candidate after 5 weeks, and he got injured. Then he came back and was just absolute trash. So he was the number 18 quarterback last year. He played all 16 games. But if you bring in Antonio Brown and draft somebody, which you have to. Now, the problem that I have is, what's the compensation they're giving up? If they give up that first-round pick that they got for Amari Cooper to the Cowboys, you're an absolute moron.
Yep.
If you gave up a 24-year-old rookie wide receiver on a rookie deal to get a 31-year-old wide receiver that wants 3 years fully guaranteed money, it's the most John Gruden thing in the world. Now, if they gave up a second or less, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
But if they did give up a first, which I don't think they have to now, man, that would be one of the dumbest moves ever, because the Raiders can't win right now. They can't. They're just a bad football team.
So let's kind of move into some of these other moves that have been made. One of the things that happened today is that the Jaguars just took a big old dump, and they released some good players, but my God, they released Malik Jackson, Taj Gibson, Parnell, Carlos Hyde, among others, and it looks like that they're maybe trying to clear some cap space for good old Nick Foles. I'm telling you right now, you guys are sleeping on him. I may want to talk about that later on. I have a case for Nick Foles. I may want to go on.
Of course you do. He won you a Super Bowl. You are totally biased, and that's
exactly.
Okay.
Today, although it's
How many Super Bowls do you guys have now?
We just got one. So all we need is one, man. So today also, it's not officially logged in the NFL transactions, but Eric Weddle went to the Rams, which is like, wow. What a good move on their part. They
lose 2 safeties, and they already plugged one in. I mean,
yes. And you might as well say that he's probably better than the 2 they lost. I don't know if you agree with that, but he's pretty good.
He didn't have a great year last year.
Yeah.
But LaMarcus Joyner was legit last year. I really do think he was. He's a problem in the locker room, but he's great on the field.
Yeah.
Eric Weddle's the exact opposite.
I remember that episode when he wanted to quit. Remember that in Hard Knocks? He's like, I'm done. I'm out of here.
Yeah, that was embarrassing.
It's like, wow. Speaking of people who wanted to quit, what were your thoughts on David Irving releasing that Instagram video?
Respect, man.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about people like walking away for whatever reason, but man, if you keep being hassled by the NFL for something that's legal in so many places, and here's the thing, why don't we test owners or coaches for marijuana? I guarantee you do that one time, this is no longer a rule. Personally, I'm as against painkillers as possible. That just destroys human beings' lives and wrecks families. I'm not a weed guy personally, but like I get it. The health benefits are there, especially for athletes. Like I'm glad that he took a stand. I'm glad that he made it so public. So props to him, man.
I think too, and I'll stand up and say this, that I think you're being short-sighted if people see that and you don't know the circumstances for him. I watched the video, and people want to project it as him being lazy, or can you believe this guy gave it all up for weed? You don't know that he maybe has issues with anxiety, or he may have it, whatever. If it's pain, there might be some other reasons that he chooses to use this to have happiness in his life.
Yeah.
And good for him.
Kick girls in the face, punch girls in the face.
Right.
We got a spot for you. Rape people, Ben Roethlisberger,
right.
multiple times in the bathroom, 2 times, settle out of court, kill people, whatever. You smoke some weed, man, this ain't the place for you. Like the double standard that is there, like this is going to be one of the chief things going into the new CBA. It's going to be thrown out in a year and a half. I guarantee it. Guarantee it.
And by that time, too, I think that there's probably a handful of states. Illinois is next. in terms of recreational use, and then there will be a federal sweep, and then all of this stuff is just going to seem really stupid for guys who maybe, and people, oh, why does he need it? Well, there's some people who are absolutely addicted to painkillers that have terrible impacts on their bodies, and we know, especially a lot of the studies that come out recently, if you're using like a herb vape or you're using oils, depending on how the medium is that you take it, there's essentially, not a lot, I won't want to say zero, but medical impact, given that people respond physiologically different based on their genetics, what have you. But overall, man, it's just such a judgmental thing I see on people on Twitter just going off on the guy. I hope he comes back eventually, and I hope he dominates. I always like to see the guys who are drafted in the later rounds and free agents come and dominate. So respect to David Irving.
Yeah, he's young too. I don't think he comes back under the current CBA because he's already having his third suspension. So it's going to be a 10-plus game / full year or indefinite suspension. So I think he was going to be out this year anyway under the current deal. So why not just say, man, fuck it, blaze it up online and just see what happens. And, man, just enjoy your life. He's young. He's going to be all right.
I'm going to tell you one of the most surprising cuts, even though I know the performance wasn't there. One of the most surprising cuts for me, and maybe you could think about if you have one for you, but Kevin Johnson, cornerback out of the Texans.
Yeah.
I know he wasn't performing at where they wanted him to be, but it felt early to give up on a guy who seemingly has some pretty good football IQ. Maybe there were some instinctual things that went wrong. I feel like those things are coachable and fixable, but you just let go of a first-round talent, and I don't know that he was looking for a big payday anyways, so I don't know. I couldn't really figure that one.
Yeah, it seemed like they were deciding between Tyrann Mathieu and Kevin Johnson.
Yeah.
Both those guys are kind of similar. Kevin Johnson plays corner, Mathieu plays free safety, but I don't think that they have the money. They do have the money. There's no doubt about that. But I think they want to go out and get some people in this free agency on the offensive side, namely offensive linemen. So we'll see what they choose to do with that money. Kevin Johnson's a starting corner in this NFL. He's 27 years old. He needs to go somewhere. But, yeah, it was kind of weird. But the Texans, they always kind of do things weird.
Yeah.
They're very unconventional.
So you guys today signed a kicker.
Yeah, we did. The 49ers signed a kicker, but this is somewhat normal. Like, every single NFL team brings in 2 kickers to, offseason and all that stuff. Now, the question with the 49ers is they tagged their kicker. The only team to use their franchise tag on Robbie Gould, the kicker. And, he's older, and he has made it known he wants to go back to Chicago, where he is from, where he played most of his career. So there is a possibility, 1, that he is traded.
Yes.
2, that he just kind of says, you know what, I'm done. I'm just moving, and we're whatever. So it's a backup plan. Nothing too big there.
Yeah.
And not too much to look at.
And one last thing for me, just in free agency, and then we can move on to these rankings, which I'm pumped about. One of the guys who I'm excited to see where he lands and could be a game changer is Jamie Collins Sr. That's a guy who, man, just a few years ago was definitely a difference maker. I still think that he can be a good linebacker, if not great linebacker. So definitely excited for that. Anybody else you're excited about just in terms of free agency before we move on to these rankings?
Yeah, I want to see where Trey Flowers goes. The defensive end / outside linebacker that wasn't tagged. So that's going to be a huge one. And then also if either Houston or Dee Ford is traded from the Chiefs. One of those guys will be traded or released. So Dee Ford's not going to be released.
No.
But if they can't trade either one of those, they will release Houston.
Right.
They're going to do that to make room for the contract for Tyreek the Freak. Again, the fact that Tyreek is in the NFL after choking out his pregnant girlfriend, that's one thing.
Right.
Just don't smoke weed, man.
Right.
That's the
man.
bad
Can you believe it?
I don't want to, beat a dead horse, but whatever.
Right. And I did forget one other important free agency thing I wanted to discuss. It was the trading of Michael Bennett to the Patriots. I hate this trade. And
so why do you hate this trade, first off? And then we'll break down the deal a little bit.
I hate the trade for the compensation first because it's a
What'd you give up?
fifth round pick, not this year, but next. So 2020 pick. Swapped for a 5th and a 7th in the 2020 draft. I think that we could have gotten more compensation for a guy like that. Although, what do I know? But here's the thing. He's an older player. I get it. But his production for the 7 or 8 mil, the cap that's going to hit, is worth it in my mind. I mean, I know that Howie's gearing up and he's going to potentially do, I guess I've heard that they're really looking at Tevin Coleman. I hope they don't go all in on him, though. I hope that they don't offer him a huge package because I really wasn't impressed with Tevin Coleman last year.
No,
I know
he had an awful year.
Yeah, and here's why I don't trust you, because when it's your year to prove it and you go out and you have a subpar year, why are we going to give you big money? So I hope we don't do that. So I get it. He's trying to free up some money to address some things. I know we're gearing up for a Wentz, big contract, but for the production at defensive end, and he moves inside to that car, that defensive end, defensive tackle switch, the NASCAR, whatever they call it, and he plays that very well. He whips guards' butts. I mean, he just kills them. So, and our Barnett is coming off of that injury. We're not really super solid. Chris Long is getting a little older. He's basically my favorite player in the NFL right now, and I just think that there's a little bit of instability there, so I would have liked to have seen us address that.
I wish.
You tell me.
I think there's probably 29 NFL teams that want your pass rusher instability. I still think you guys are loaded there.
No, I agree with you, but I'm saying to keep that and even increase it. I actually could see the Eagles going defensive tackle at their first-round pick this year.
But man, you know what's funny? Just I think 2 weeks ago we were talking about your salary, the Philadelphia Eagles salary cap, and they were negative $2 million. Now you're at $26 million under.
Yeah.
So they've cleared some space with letting Foles go.
Yep.
Trading Bennett, who was due $7.2 million. He's 33 years old, so I get that. Yeah, you're not getting very much compensation back. But if we switch over to the New England side, Bill Belichick, he's found another way to outsmart the entire NFL, and he's done this a few years in a row. And here's what it is. It has to do with compensation picks. So what happens is, if I let my pass rusher leave free agency, and compensation picks they're brought about by playing time and financial compensation, so what contract they sign, right? So they let Trey Flowers go. They didn't tag him. So because he's going to sign a $17 million plus deal somewhere else and be a every down starter, that's huge on the compensation scale, right? Now, if you sign another player through free agency it goes by playing time and price, it cancels each other out. However, the caveat is this. If you trade for a player, it does not enter into that formula. So, last year, let's jump back. They did the exact same damn thing with Nate Soldier. They let him walk. The Giants paid him a ridiculous amount of money. He played the entire season at left tackle. And what did they do for their left tackle? They traded for the 49ers. They went and got Trent Brown and gave up a third-round pick. And so what happened this year? They were awarded a high third-round draft pick in the compensation.
It's crazy.
And the same thing is going to happen next year because of this. Because Trey Flowers is going to get a lot of money. They didn't sign a free agent. Instead, they traded away a fifth, and so they're going to get awarded another 3 next year. They are matrixing the way the NFL works.
Yeah, it's definitely something that they need to fix in the next CBA, 100%. I mean, they can't allow this to keep happening
or just do it. Like, that's the thing. Like,
yeah, or other
you've
organizations
got to realize, there's a flaw here.
Right.
Take advantage of that.
Yeah.
And most GMs are not to that point where they're paying attention, 3 moves ahead. Belichick is, man. I hate that guy, but he is unreal.
Yes. Speaking of hate, you received a lot of hate for your wide receiver rankings. Let's go through it, man, because I think that this year is definitely, that's the hottest buzz that's going to be a part of this draft class, and tons of defensive line talent at the top end of the first round, which means there's going to be some pretty spectacular wide receivers in that mid to lower range of the first round. So let's get to it, man. Let's talk about your wide receivers.
So everybody has DK Metcalf as the number one wide receiver in the world now just because of what he did, right, at the Combine. He comes out, he just absolutely crushes it, and I agree. There will be certain teams in the NFL that will have DK Metcalf first on their draft board. DK Metcalf will go first as far as wide receivers in the NFL draft. Having said all those things, he is not my wide receiver one.
Yep.
His film is fun, given he's had lots of injury issues. That's just kind of his neck was a major issue. He missed some games his freshman year. Yes, he's a physical freak, 6'3", 228, ran a 4.33, all those things. However, at Ole Miss, they do not run the full route tree. And so, I charted every single route that he ran in the first half of one of his SEC games, and it was hitch, wide receiver screen, go route, come back. Those are the only 4 routes he ran through the first 2 quarters. Like, it is not a well-developed – he doesn't know how to run, advanced kind of post-corner routes and how to sit down versus this coverage. And he really doesn't go side to side. And again, during that time, that first half that I charted, he never passed inside the hash. Like, he only runs vertical. That's it. His horizontal breaks are absolutely atrocious. Now, if you are just looking for somebody to take the top off of a defense and you have a vertical passing game, he is ideal for you. But because of that, he is not my wide receiver one. I currently have him as my wide receiver 3. I do understand. Again, you can at me all you want. At JL_Chapman. Bring it. I don't care. I will show you the film. I'll show you the clips, whatever.
Yeah.
But he's got a 56% catch rate, which is Des Bryant bad. At the college level is awful. It's not so much that he's got a lot of drops. He's dropped 7 balls on 118 targets, which is bad. But he doesn't have the shake. So there's going to be a lot of teams that are not going to necessarily have them at the top of the board. He's going to be, if he falls to the second round, we'll take him. But this guy's going to go in the first 20 picks. There's no doubt.
And I just want to say, too, that for all of those Julio comparisons, I'm sorry, go back and watch Julio again.
No,
all right?
It's not who he is.
No, it's not who he is because Julio has got Antonio Brown type of feet. I mean, and Julio leaves these tiny, quick twitch corners in the dust with how he runs routes. Metcalf hasn't shown that. He doesn't, to me, have the chop in his legs. Not yet. Not to say, and I would say, too, I don't want to limit this guy. He could be great.
Yes.
With development, this guy could be serious. He could be a monster. But I would just say with the history of a lot of these physical freaks that run those types of routes, I think about Kevin White. I think about some of these other monster of men who have not been able to put it together. And a lot of people just forget the importance of route running and the attention to detail that you have to have, at the NFL level. So best of luck to him, but he's not my wide receiver 1 either. But go ahead and tell me about.
It's funny, I put out an article on Eat Sleep Fantasy, and basically the idea was this: what do I look for when scouting each position? So I went back through the deep ARPANET, and I found Bill Walsh's old scouting notes, which he published.
Yeah.
And so he goes through each position, and this is what I'm looking for. So I kind of adapted all those things. And the number one thing is route running, which I have DK Metcalf at it too. Now, whatever routes they asked him to run, he ran very well. He runs a comeback route very, very well. He just can't go side to side. He can stop and start. His hips are so tight.
Yeah.
So you just got to keep that in mind. Now, I will say this. I've bashed him. He is probably the best wide receiver against press coverage because he is so fast and so strong. Even when cornerbacks get their hands on him at the line, it does not slow him down at all. So if you're going to press him, you have to have a safety over the top 100% of the time. Yeah. But if you're just going to be a mirror and match corner, that's Tre'Davious White, with Buffalo Bills, he would shut him down. I'm telling you that right now. If you put a guy that's just going to follow him, that's not physical, and is just always going to be in his hip pocket, that's going to be the kind of antithesis to DK Metcalf. But whatever. Let's move on to my number 1, and I'm going to get a lot of flack for this. I already have. I don't care. I'm a former coach. I want consistency, and I want film. It's who I am. Kelvin Harmon, NC State, 6'2", 221. Love this kid, man. Absolutely love this kid. Is he fast? Nope. He ran a 4.61. He's not fast.
Yeah.
But, at the beginning of every single thing that I write down for every player profile I do, which I watch at least 3 complete game films before I write up a person. Usually I watch 1 game film and I don't write anything. I just watch. I don't copy clips. I just watch. The second one, once I start to establish tendencies, then I put stuff down. This guy couldn't stop adding stuff. Contested catches, body awareness, insane blocker, textbook feet, always knows where he is on the field, knows every down and distance, first down machine, runs the full route tree, catches the ball away from his body. Like, just every single thing that he does. And whenever I can find a player whose highlights in game film are similar, I fall in love.
Yeah.
I don't believe in highlights. I'm just not a highlight guy. I never watch highlights. When people post clips on Twitter, which I'm guilty of this as well, usually I don't click on there. I'll see what game it is, then go try to find that game film, and then watch it that way and see if I can find that same play. But whenever you have somebody that is just unreal, game in, game out, every single drive, obviously the best player on the field, man, I fall in love. I love Kelvin Harmon, man.
Yeah, so first of all, you've run into this problem before back when you rated Kareem Hunt as high as you did, back when nobody else was saying that he was that good. And I think that that's the thing, the advantage of having the coaching perspective and not getting caught up in all of the combine warriors and maybe 1 year production from this guy. The other thing is
Right.
with some of the clips that you have shared on Twitter and some of the film that I watched on YouTube on him, strong hands. I mean, the guy has just ridiculously strong hands, and you see guys swipe at the ball, punch at the ball. I mean, it doesn't even look like it moves at all. So
yeah, and so like if we go back to DK Metcalf, right, 7 drops on 118 passes. Kelvin Harmon 9 drops on 275 passes. So an additional 100 targets and 2 additional drops in that 100 targets.
You mentioned
you
mentioned his 40 time earlier at 4.6. Who are some other wide receivers, if you know offhand, who have run 4.6?
Yeah, so some of the bigger guys, namely Chicago's new starter wideout that they just signed. Allen Robinson was a big one. You know, Anquan Boldin was fast, but he reminds me of Anquan Boldin when he blocks, and I have a very high blocking grade on him.
Yeah.
And so, man, I sent out a tweet, man, which is like the ultimate douchebag thing ever. But I compared him to a lot of other guys that ran slower, kind of whatever, 40-yard dashes. And, man, he fits right in with all of those guys. And so I'll be able to find it for a second. But, again, the idea is what this guy can do is just it's consistency. Now, is he going to be your number 1 leading receiver in the NFL? No, he's never going to be that. But none of these guys are going to be that. So what do you want to do with that? You know what I mean? That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah. I mean, if you take a look at how many guys are out there who don't meet that, who are right in that 4.6 range, there's a ton of guys in the NFL at the wide receiver spot that they didn't break 4.6. They're just right there at 4.6.
Yeah, we're talking about Antonio Brown all the time. Like, he's not a guy that's even close to what Kelvin Harmon does as a player. He's small and shifty, but he ran a 4.56.
Yeah.
So you're talking about a guy that's within half a second of that. Definitely a different skill set, but that's kind of what it is.
Yeah. So who was your number 2 guy?
All right, my number 2 guy, huge injury, and that's going to be Marquise Brown. So the way I do my ranking is in tiers, and I have 3 players in the top tier. Number 1 is Kelvin Harmon. Number 2, Marquise Brown, who we're going to talk about now, and then DK Metcalf is number 3.
Yeah.
So people are going to get pissed off at me about DK Metcalf. That's fine. He's in my top tier. Like, I have him going in the first round. I just personally, if I was a GM, which I would not take a wide receiver in the first round, especially in this draft with all the defensive talent.
Yeah.
But if I had to say who should go first, that's kind of what I have set up. But Marquise Brown is just think Deshaun Jackson clone. That's what everybody's calling him. And when you watch the film, it's all you think of. 5'9", 166 pounds, tiny arms, tiny hands, but just unreal. I mean, it's unreal what this kid has done for Oklahoma. You know, the primary target for back-to-back Heisman winners with Baker Mayfield, then Kyler Murray, and there's a big reason why this guy is wide open every damn play. You cannot guard him. And you can't even press him. He has no problem with press, even though he's tiny, because he's so shifty and his lateral quickness and his hips are unreal. Now, the problem is, and the big problem is, he had a Liz Frank injury against Texas in the Big 12 championship. So that was huge. So he's going to be out. He's not going to be in training camp. He's a candidate for the PUP list. And so your question is, are we trying to win now? Or do we want the best top-end talent, towards the end of the year? Because he'll play this year, but it's gonna be he'll probably miss the first 6 games. I wouldn't be surprised. But his film is unreal. And, if this was a guy 10 years ago, I don't think he would have been drafted anywhere in the first 2 rounds. But, man, he's a flyer. He would have been in the 4.3 range, tiny, tiny little guy. And the funny thing is he catches everything. He has the largest average depth of target, which means the ball travels further passes to him than any other wide receiver in the country. But he also has a 71% catch rate, which is unreal. So he's not catching, screens and all that stuff. He's catching bombs.
Yeah.
And even though he's got tiny little bitty hands and is a little bit of a body catcher, there's no contested catches because nobody's ever around him.
He's a guy who I definitely would love to be on the Eagles, just because we're really in need of somebody who can just stretch the field, because it changes our offense when, Carson can just throw a bomb, down the field. So,
and this is the new thing with the NFL. Usually we would have a 5'9", 166-pound wide receiver, and we say, oh, slot guy. Nope. This guy's an outside wide receiver. And so you're putting this guy on the line, and, you're thinking Brandon Cooks, right? He's a more athletic and shiftier Brandon Cooks. Like, he's better than Brandon Cooks. And I loved Brandon Cooks coming out of Oregon State. But this guy is better. So, the question is, are his stats inflated because he played with 2 Heisman Trophy winners and back-to-back some of the best offensive lines in the NFL? And is he going to go to a team that's going to utilize his strengths? These are the questions. So you have to always put into effect, I'm a GM for an NFL team. Can I use this kid? Because if I can't, if I'm on the Tennessee Titans, don't draft him.
Right.
Because he's a waste on your team.
Yep.
You can't throw to this kid if you're a Tennessee Titan. He shouldn't even be on your draft board.
Right. So we know who is at number 3. Do we need to talk about him, or can we drop down to your next tier?
Yeah, number 3 is DK Metcalf, so let's move down. We've talked about him a lot, and I really do like him, but it's a projection. Not saying he can't do all those other things. We just haven't seen it. We just ain't seen it. So my next kind of tier, and I do love this kid. I'm struggling keeping him in that second tier and not in the first tier, and that's Hakeem Butler. Iowa State, 6'6", 227 pounds, ran a 4.48. I went through everything, and basically I calculated every wide receiver's height, every wide receiver's vertical, and every wide receiver's arm length to come up with basically their catch radius, which I like to keep track of every year, just because these are the guys that can quote-unquote go up and get the ball, right? And right at the top of the list are DK Metcalf, 149 inches, and Hakeem Butler, who's tied 149 inches. So you're talking over 12 feet tall. These guys can, and that's off vertical. That's not a running start. That's standing flat foot, jumping straight up. You're talking about a guy that can go 12 and a half feet in the air to catch a ball. And I think that there's so much value there, right? And so Hakeem Butler, he's just a huge dude. And this guy is just a deep, he's just a deep ball guy.
Yeah.
So he led the NCAA in deep ball passes, passes that traveled more than 20-plus yards in the air. He caught 19 out of 37 of those. He's unreal, man. 17 drops on 110 targets. That's problematic. But all of his targets are 30 yards downfield. So, and they're jump balls. He's not a guy that gets separation. He's a guy that out-jumps you. So that's kind of what he did. So in a lot of dynasty drafts, Hakeem Butler's going to be the 1.01 because of the touchdowns.
And depending on where he goes, for sure that's going to have a big impact.
Exactly. So the fantasy world loves Hakeem Butler. Like, he's going to be the guy that's going to have, 70 catches and 10 touchdowns. So that's kind of very similar to almost Alshon Jeffrey, but he's much bigger.
And then you got somebody at number 5.
Yeah, the next 2 guys in that same tier are A.J. Brown out of Ole Miss. DK Metcalf's teammate. He's a 100% slot guy. 6 foot, 226 pounds, ran a 4.4. And this guy, every single snap he took was out of the slot. He doesn't run a lot of routes, but 74% catch rate. In my comp for him, he's an uber athletic, kind of do-it-all, whatever guy. As if Le'Veon Bell was a slot receiver coming out of high school or college.
Wow.
Like, he is built. He's jacked. So he's small, shifty, and just he's a better athlete than he is football player. But if you get the ball in his hands, he's going to be incredible. But he's only going to play the slot. Nobody's going to draft him to be an outside wide receiver.
Does he play could he play the running back position or even be a threat on those sweeps?
Yeah, jet sweep guy. He did a whole bunch of that. Misdirection, just kind of wide receiver screens or bubble screens out or tunnel screens. Yeah, he does all of that. Kick returner, he's got it all. And again, he has the size to play outside, and somebody might put him out there, but that's a projection. He literally played 100% within the slot. So for a team that didn't run a diverse route tree, so it's going to be a 2-over adjustment going in the NFL if you want to play him outside.
All right, I got a curveball for you. Ready?
Oh, I like curveballs.
I know you do. All right, so out of the guys that you've listed so far, and I'm having you put on your fantasy football, possibly your dynasty cap, what player, you could just choose one, would you be really excited about going to a particular team? Like that person, given the quarterback situation, is going to thrive on that team. And
my initial thing was DK Metcalf to the Raiders because they like to put the ball in the air.
Yeah.
But if AB goes there, that's going to kind of slow that down.
Yeah.
Who I would really, really, really like, and this sucks because they already have so many players, is with the Rams. You put Kelvin Harmon on the Rams in that Robert Woods role.
Yeah.
That would be unbelievable. Now, whomever goes to the Patriots, and the Patriots are going to be getting a wide receiver, whether that's in the first or second round, that guy immediately has to shoot up because there's such a need there to have a wide receiver. Kelvin Harmon, I love Kelvin Harmon. He's a perfect fit for the New England Patriots. And if they get him, I'm going to be beyond pissed off.
It's funny because as I thought this up, I thought, God, dude, kind of like any of these guys to the Patriots, they're just going to be immediately, brought up to that level, especially Butler. Because I know, obviously you said he's a deep threat, big touchdown guy. Well, who knows how to utilize that very well? His name's Tom Brady. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So how about take us through the rest of these? I think you're at number 6 now.
Yeah, let's just a couple more guys. And again, this is the last in that second tier, and that's N'Keal Harry out of Arizona State, 6'2", 228, ran a 4.53. He was coached by Herm Edwards, who's your boy. Former Eagle. Absolutely love this guy. But just size and athleticism. This guy, he's basically he's the you take the super compact, slot receiver that's jacked, and you mix him with the big number 1 wideout. That's who this guy is. So everybody talks about DK Metcalf's body. Well, N'Keal Harry's number 2 as far as most size and power and athleticism. So he's super, super freaky. The problem is most of their routes were screens or go routes. Again, we're back into the idea of DK Metcalf, right? He is a guy, he doesn't run a diversified route tree. That's not who he is. But he's never missed a game in 3 years and finished with back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons and 22 career touchdowns. Caught 50% of his deep balls that traveled 20 yards in the air. Played some in the slot, but, 65% catch route and over 300 targets, he's dropped 15 balls. So, he catches everything, and a lot of people might cringe at this comp for me, but he reminds me of Kenny Britt, but a Pro Bowler. His game is similar to Kenny Britt, but he's so consistent that upside is there.
What a diss.
It's a diss, but, I don't mean it to be.
No, I got it.
Kenny Britt's ceiling was unreal. And so if you could combine that with actually somebody that's good at football and get that, I don't know. People hate my comps, but that's what I see whenever I watch the film.
Yeah.
Is this is who he should have been. So I love N'Keal Harry. Again, you have these. There's 3 guys that could be the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy drafts or dynasty drafts.
Yeah.
You got DK Metcalf, Hakeem Butler, and N'Keal Harry. Those are the 3 that are like your touchdown, true wide receiver ones that could lead in targets and things like that. It's those 3 guys. So.
I am so happy. In one league, I have 3 first rounders.
If you got first rounders, man, wide receivers, there are going to be a lot of them available in this year dynasty rookie drafts.
Gonna do it. All right, so take us through. I think you got 2 more, I believe.
I got a lot more than that, but yeah, let's just do 2. I don't want to bore everybody. Yeah. The next 2 I have are Riley Ridley, which everybody should know because of Calvin Ridley, his brother. Riley Ridley played at Georgia, 6'1", 199 pounds, ran a 4.58. Again, very compact. The thing that Riley Ridley does better than anybody else in this draft, the best route runner and the best get off the line. Now, the problem is his production is awful. He didn't really do much at Georgia because they have so many options. So his stats they're the lowest of the low, but when you watch him, his routes, he's open all the freaking time. And you cannot press this kid. Like, he is so compact and so technical, which is awesome, that he's going to thrive wherever he goes. He runs great
Would it
routes.
be fair to say that because of that, he could potentially actually be and have a lot higher production than the guys that you have ahead of him so far?
Yeah, I mean, landing spot's going to be huge for this guy because he's built like a wide receiver 1, and if you want to treat him that way, you can. The problem is, he's got a 63% catch rate, but on deep balls, he's caught less than 40%, which is not ideal. Why was he always the 3rd option in his offense in college, yet you're going to use him as a true wide receiver 1 in the NFL? How is he going to react to that? Yeah, the potential's there. Yes, the film supports that he can do that, but you're asking a guy to do something he's never, ever done. He only had 43 receptions this year, but he did get 9 touchdowns out of 43 receptions. So he's scoring touchdowns basically once out of every 4 targets.
That's another guy, though. If you're going to get any flack, the Harmon and then obviously Metcalf at 3, but I think also because of name recognition and then Georgia, SEC, people have got him in the top 3 in a lot of the rankings that I'm seeing, and I haven't seen the film, to support that. Although the route running, which is something that's like one of my highest qualities and criteria I look for, is there. So I definitely see the potential, especially on landing spot, for him to be one of those people in a deeper, somewhere down the line in your dynasty drafting. If he's still on the board in the 2nd, he's somebody who I would take in the 2nd round in dynasty.
Yeah, like if you're in a super flex and 2 or 3 quarterbacks go in the 1st round, which always happens and will happen again this year for sure, and maybe 1 tight end, which would there's a couple good tight ends. We'll talk about that in another episode. But yeah, there's going to be somebody. It might not be Riley Ridley, but there's going to be a top wide receiver that falls.
Yep.
And so he would be a great guy. And again, a lot of this depends on situation. Where do they go? Do they land in a spot where they're going to be playing in a high passing volume, which it seems like everything's going to? That's going to determine this. And the last guy I want to talk about is J.J. Arcega-Whiteside out of Stanford. He's a big dude. Now, he weighed in at 6'2", 225, but he looks way bigger. Great hands. Catch radius is legit. He didn't do his vertical, which I was so pissed off at the combine. He wants to do it at his pro day. Because I was like, man, come on, let me finish out my chart. Because I think he might be near the top. Basketball player guy. He's very tight-hipped. He doesn't go side to side. But he is the definition of a touchdown machine. 28 career touchdowns. He's caught 16 of 28 deep balls. Again, balls traveling 20-plus yards in the air. He's unreal. So he reminds me a lot of Mike Williams from Clemson, but less athletic. Maybe a better catcher.
Yeah.
His hands are better, but very similar mindset. So think about what Mike Williams did at Clemson and for the Chargers. He's that high touchdown potential guy. So if you're having a hard time in the red zone, you're circling this kid on your big board.
Yep.
J.J. Arcega-Whiteside out of Stanford, like that is what he is designed to do. He's like a skinny Jimmy Graham. is the way I would think about it. And he high points the ball better than anybody. Like, he has so many catches where you're just like, bullshit, he didn't catch that. No way he caught. Yeah, he caught that. So, and he's got like 2 of those a game where it's just ultimate circus high point with 2 guys draped all over him, and he just makes a freak catch. But once he catches it, he falls down.
Yeah.
Like, he's fast. He's a pretty quick dude. But yeah, that's kind of what he is. He's not a yards after the catch guy.
So it's funny because I think you just went through 8 wide receivers, right? And that is
maybe,
I think so. And that is the amount of wide receivers that were taken the first 2 rounds. So my guess is that, I mean, think about, if you're a lower second round, there's still going to be potentially a guy like that available for your team. Not to mention that, if there's a few other guys that'll be on your list, and you'll have access to that on John's Twitter. Go ahead.
Yeah, my Twitter, and actually, man, I don't know. I shouldn't probably be talking about this, but a handful of people have asked me if I'll sell my draft guide, where basically all of my notes I just put out there and all the charts that I make and all that stuff, and sell it for like $10. And so I put a poll out there and was like, hey, if I did this, would you be interested? And the responses were pretty good. So I think I'm just going to put it out there. Like, I'm at 36 pages of draft content right now. I've never sold it in the past, but who knows? I'll just put it up there for $10, where you send me your email address and I'll give you rights to it, and you do whatever you want with it. But, going back to how the wide receivers are going to work out in this draft, if I was to pick right now, I think 2 wide receivers go in the first round. Then I think 7 wide receivers go in the second round. Because the defensive line is so heavy up top. Everybody's going to go defense in the first round. A couple guys will sneak in there. But the second round, that's where the value is going to be the sweet spot.
I am excited. And here's what I'll say about that. I'm lucky because I get to have John, fill me in and tell me all of his hard work that he's doing. But for me, it's always made the draft better, and just to know, the players on an in-depth level, and just to be able to enjoy day 2 and day 3 just that much more, having that information. And you're like, oh, I know about this guy. I'm excited about this guy on my team. So do that shit, yo.
Dude, it's a deep ass draft. Like, this is one of the deepest drafts we have had across almost all positions, besides maybe linebacker, off the ball linebacker. But I mean, there's just so much talent across the board that you can get on day 3. Like, this is going to be the most exciting 4th round draft I think I've ever, like in the 4th round, I've ever watched in my life.
It's going to be amazing.
I'm pumped, man.
Well,
and if you're going to Nashville, hit us up.
That's what I was just about to say, man. On that note, see you guys in Nashville. So, this has been NFL Express with our best ones out. Choo choo, wide receiver. Everybody's going to add us. Maybe, maybe not. DK Metcalf. Sorry, bro. You're the 3rd best wide receiver in the class. Add us. John, say goodbye.
Peace.
Peace.